Very good morning to all. I'm Professor Ashish Sharma from Ministry of Science, Transportation Systems Engineering section in the Civil Engineering Department. I'm also President of the Transportation Research Group of India, the society under whose aegis we are doing this webinar today. We'll begin the webinar and hopefully more people will join as we follow on. For for future reference, I'm recording this webinar completely, so that later on those who are not able to join today can also refer to it to the recording later on. So it's an important topic and has been in discussion among the various sections of public and citizens group and forums for quite some time about whether to close Cubbon Park for traffic or not. And there have been a lot of views on this. What we really wanted to do was to give a technical perspective about the traffic impact, which has been in discussion, that what would happen to the traffic on the adjoining roads in Cubbon Park if the traffic is banned inside the Cubbon Park. So the whole purpose of this technical article was to come up with an independent scientific analysis of banning traffic through Cubbon Park for all motorized vehicles and understand how this impacts the traffic, not just in the adjoining roads around the Cubbon Park, but also over the whole BMR, Bangalore Metropolitan Region Network. And as we'll go through, we'll understand how we have done this and what results have come out. We actually prepared a technical article on this whole work, and this was submitted to the Deputy CM, Shri Ashwath Narayan, on 10th of September, and we had marked the copy of this communication and the technical article that we have sent to also Commissioner DOLT, Ms. Manjula, as well as Joint Commissioner Traffic, Shri Ravi Kante Gowda, and the Horticultural Department Secretary, Shri Rajendra Kataria. The whole intention is to help them understand the scientific perspective about the closing of Cubbon Park to traffic and how this would have impact, whether there are overall benefits or loss, and so that it helps them to take decision. Later on, we have also widely circulated it, for open public reference, so that everybody who have interest in understanding the impact can refer to the article and understand. The purpose of today's webinar was to explain this report in a simple way, hopefully, so that everybody who wish to have a clear idea about how and in what manner this work has been done and what results have come out, hopefully that would, this webinar will help them clarify some of their doubts. So I'll move forward. Of course, in the background, when we look at Cubbon Park is a historical, and a landmark space in Bangalore city. It's actually treated as a landmark lung space right in the heart of Bangalore city, right in the Central Business District (CBD), and it's a large space spread over about 300 acres, and it's a vibrant ecological zone. I'm sure experts in ecology and environment would delve a lot about how vibrant and rich this whole Cubbon Park is as an ecological zone. From the point of view of quality of life or livability in the city, which is today is the most important aim for any development that we should do in the city, in terms of making the quality of life or livability of the city better. Such green spaces are extremely important. All of us understand that, and for people across all walks of life. Unlike other places where you may not have access to such vibrant spaces to all income group people, poor people, and rich people alike. Such kind of park spaces gives access to people across all walks of life, all ages, all income groups, and so on. And so, rich and poor alike, such parks provide valuable spaces to socialize, breathe fresh air and clean air, and live a healthy life in such fast motorizing and urbanizing city like Bangalore. I'm sure all of us know the statistics. Bangalore added doubled its population in just 2 decades. From the 91 census to 2011 census. That's a huge urbanization that Bangalore has seen, and likewise the exponential growth in the motorized vehicles. And so, in such fast urbanizing and motorizing city, you really need such lung spaces, such park spaces to provide a good quality of life to people. Uh, of course, many citizens groups and other stakeholders in the city have been requesting for a complete ban of motorized vehicles in the Cubbon Park. Uh, and we have seen this over time. A lot of news articles have come about citizens group demands and their persuasion with stakeholders to stop traffic and make these spaces, park spaces, available for people to move freely and have a good quality of life. And we have been seeing these news coming up. Some of the government departments also have been pitching in for the ban of traffic inside Cubbon Park. Of course, when you look across the world, there are already examples. It's not something that our city is unique in asking for complete ban on traffic inside Cubbon Park. For example, if you think about Central Park in New York, which is a similar lung space in a large metropolitan city like New York, this was since 2018. While before also it was partially banned, but since 2018 it has been completely banned for traffic. Likewise, one can look around across the world, and one would find examples where cities have taken this major step to save their lung spaces. So the aim of this study was to understand the traffic impact of of this closing of Cubbon Park in terms of not just the volume to capacity ratio, which is a technical parameter that we use to understand the level of service in different roads and sections, uh, uh, but also in terms of the total vehicle kilometers traveled by all motorized modes uh, across and completely on the whole BMR network, as well as understanding the vehicular emissions. We have just focused on the two important exhaust emissions that come from vehicles, CO2 and PM 2.5, and try to understand what would be the traffic impact and also on the vehicular emissions. And this has been done over the whole BMR network in the scenario of closing of Cubbon Park to motorized vehicles. Now, why model over BMR network? One would argue that it's a small, it's a one spot, and why not just focus on the adjoining roads? So the point is, the Cubbon Park is located right in the central business district, right in the heart of the city, which means a large number of origin destination uh, trips in the city would get impacted in terms of their route choice, which would get influenced, and they may have to change their route choice due to the closure of Cubbon Park for motorized traffic. Had the Cubbon Park being in some corner of the city or somewhere in the outskirts of the city, it may not have had any substantial impact on the traffic pattern in the whole BMR network. But since being located right in the heart of the city, it's important to understand its impact at the network level rather than just on the adjoining roads. So that's why, to get the holistic picture of traffic impact and associated exhaust emission, we have taken its impact over the BMR network, but at the same time understanding how the adjoining roads also get impacted. This is the scientific methodology, and I'll of course try my best to explain in a simple way. Using the baseline data and the target level of sustainable transport. The way we understand, we have taken two scenarios. The business as usual scenario, which is nothing but when the traffic is allowed inside Kavan Park. And when we say traffic, we are looking at the pre-COVID level traffic levels, which is what is the actual normal. We are not taking the current situation of traffic where due to COVID the traffic is less. We are taking the pre-COVID level traffic levels. And the other scenario is banning traffic in the Kavan Park. And this comparison of these two scenario analysis is done using a macro simulation approach. We basically use a traditional travel demand modeling approach, which helps us to forecast transport demand and emissions based on the forecasting of transport demand, and then helps us do the appraisal of these two scenarios and understand the traffic impact and make a recommendation. So the two scenarios, as I said, that we have considered. Vedmala, may I request you to keep your microphone in mute, please? Thank you. So the two scenarios that we are considering is business as usual. As I said, it's 2020 business as usual scenario with traffic at the pre-COVID level, and the other is the Kavan Park no traffic scenario, which is again pre-COVID level traffic for 2020. Also, the modeling that we are using is a conventional macro simulation framework. We call it as a 4-stage travel demand model. In the next slide, I'll try to explain it in a simple way, but it's basically a set of mathematical models that imitates the trip making decision behavior of individuals. Any day when you make trip, you actually make a sequence of these decisions to make a trip. So these travel demand modeling framework mainly captures those trip making behavior, and once you have these models in place, you can then evaluate any kinds of scenario. And this has been reported completely in this Climatrans report. The technical article that we have disseminated, there is a link given at the end of that article to download the full Climatrans report. So anybody who has more interest in the complete mathematical details, they can go through this report. I'll try to explain this 4-stage modeling in a very simple way. Typically we divide a city into number of zones. It's just like municipal wards or census wards. We call them as traffic analysis zones. So whole study area like BMR gets divided into different traffic analysis zones. I think we have about 380 or so zones for whole BMR. So assuming that the city is divided into a certain number of zones, say for the sake of example 3 zones, in the first step of modeling, we try to understand how many trips will get produced and how many trips will get attracted to each of these zones on a given normal commuting day. Okay, so these numbers basically represents how many trips are getting produced and attracted to each of those traffic analysis zones. So it's just like saying how many trips will happen from Koramangala area, or how many trips will happen from Malleshwaram area, or how many trips will get attracted to Manyata Tech Park and things like that. In the next stage, we try to understand how the interchange between these of trips between these zones will happen, which is what we call it as origin destination matrix. So each row is nothing but a zone, and each column is nothing but a zone in terms of destination, and rows are in origin. So when I say, for example, 40 trips, we are essentially saying that 40 trips are made from zone 3 to zone 2. It's like saying that 40 trips are happening from say IISc campus to Kavan Park, like that. So we try to understand the distribution of these trips from zone to zone in the second step. In the third step, we then try to understand how people then choose mode. If there are these 40 trips happening between a given pair of zones, how many will go by car, how many will go by two-wheeler, how many will go by bus, and other modes like that. So we try to split them into modes. And in the last stage, for each of these modes, what route they will choose. Okay. So if I tomorrow have to go from IISc campus to Kavan Park, I may have more than one bus route to go. Which route I choose based on the characteristics of the routes. Likewise, if I'm taking my personal vehicle, whether I choose this particular road to go, or I take some other route, and so on. So with this process, essentially we try to load all the trips, all these origin destination trips, onto routes being taken by each of these trips. And at the end, what you get is a complete distribution of traffic volumes on each and every road within the given study area. So this is how these steps of decision making for making a trip are being captured in a modeling framework. So the origin destination trips in the whole BMR are assigned to the road network using what we call it as user equilibrium trip assignment. Again, I'll try to explain this in a simple way. And then once we load the network, we try to estimate how much of vehicle kilometers traveled by all motorized modes together on the network, as well as the volume to capacity ratio on different links of the road network. What this user equilibrium means is every user on a given commute day, on a normal commute day, would choose a route that minimizes their own individual travel time or distance. And if they try to change that route, they'll only increase their travel time or distance. They can't be able to reduce it, because that's where the equilibrium is. In the equilibrium situation, everyone who is taking a specific route is optimizing or minimizing their own individual travel time or distance. This is how everybody chooses routes to travel on a given normal working day or a commute day. When certain interventions happen, for example, banning of traffic in the Kavan Park, you would see that some roads are now not available uh, uh, for those who are taking those and whose routes were passing through those roads. So then there is some redistribution of these routes onto other roads, where now people have to figure out. And over time you reach another equilibrium in that situation where the traffic is banned in the Kavan Park. And in that revised equilibrium, again you have a situation where everybody is minimizing their individual travel time or distance. This is how this user equilibrium works, and which is what is behaviorally correct also, in terms of what all we actually do in terms of choosing our route while traveling from point A to point B. So under the Kavan Park traffic ban scenario, many OD pairs, this origin destination trip pairs, will adjust their chosen routes in such a way that this user equilibrium state is again reached. As I said, people start reassigning. It will happen over some months or so. Okay, you will try some other alternative routes and see that, okay, now this is the best route for me for commuting, so I'll start taking this particular route. This will then lead to changes in the traffic impact parameters, and which is what we try to understand how they are changed and compare it with the business as usual, where the traffic is allowed inside the Kavan Park. Now, this is the modal share of trips in BMR for the year 2020, with cars having a mode share of about 9%, and buses and metro together about 49% mode share, and likewise. Now, while doing this impact evaluation, we also did try and understand if people are changing their mode due to the banning of traffic inside Kavan Park. And we ran our model to understand that, but we didn't find any noticeable change in the current mode share based on the current level of supply of public transport and its level of service that is given. And so the mode share practically is not changing in the traffic ban scenario of Kavan Park. But I want to bring this point very clearly, that we also tried understanding the impact on mode choice as well using our modeling framework. Now, let me quickly run through the results that we get from this whole analysis. The first thing is we try to understand the total vehicle kilometers traveled in the whole BMR network, how it is in BAU and how it is in the current park no traffic scenario. And what we see here is that the total, interestingly, it's a very interesting result. The total VKT in BAU, it's getting slightly reduced in the Kavan Park no traffic scenario from 32.08 million kilometers per day to 31.94 million kilometers per day, which is about a decrease of 0.44%. Of course, this is expected to be not substantial because it's not a big space that we are talking about, but still it is leading to certain savings, and it's a very interesting results. The main reason possibly I see for such a result is that in the revised user equilibrium, that I talked about, the travelers eventually are readjusting their routes in such a manner that overall there is a reduction in the total vehicle kilometers traveled by all motorized modes. Now, it could be a situation when the traffic is allowed inside Kavan Park with the perception of beating the traffic congestion outside the Kavan Park roads. People end up taking the longer route of Kavan Park uh, uh, to uh, basically circumvent those congestion points, but end up driving more miles or extra miles because of taking longer routes through Kavan Parks. I mean, these are certain possibilities because of which the way eventually the revised equilibrium is leading us to slight decrease in the total vehicle kilometers traveled over the whole BMR network. And this is the glimpse of the loaded network. Okay, now it's a color theme, you and as well as in terms of thickness basically reveals the amount of traffic volume on different roads, and the color basically represents the congestion level in which we assess using the volume to capacity ratio. Anything reaching 1 or above 1, the volume to capacity ratio shows that the links are highly congested. And you see all the darker links are in the CBD area of the city, where both in the BAU scenario as well as in the Kavan Park no traffic scenario, you actually don't see any substantial improvement. We'll zoom in into and see the road network around the Kavan Park also. So if you sorry so if you zoom in into the Kavan Park and the roads around the Kavan Park, you would essentially see that most of these links are dark, as you would see from here. And interestingly, when you look at the BAU and Kavan Park scenario, some links or roads are getting darker and some are getting lighter, as shown in these arrows. So net effect is that overall you actually don't see any substantial change or improvement whether you allow traffic through Kavan Park or not allow traffic through Kavan Park. We'll see in the next slide in the table how this V/C ratio looks like on these adjoining roads. But essentially, it's just a delta change, a small delta change that is happening because of the ban of traffic, opening of Kavan Park for traffic, which is not at all substantial in any way to reduce the condition of congestion. So if you look at this table, this basically shows the V/C ratio on these roads, the adjoining roads, in the business as usual scenario where you have the traffic allowed inside Kavan Park and the Kavan Park no traffic scenario. You will see that in most of the cases there is slight increase in the V/C ratio in the Kavan Park no traffic scenario, but altogether, even in BAU, all these roads are already at the worst congestion level, which we depict as level of service F. We generally categorize the level of service as A to F, A being the highest or best level of service, and F being the worst level of service. It's actually similar to, for example, when you go to a restaurant or a hotel, you have certain notion of the quality of service that they provide, and you assess the quality of service and the level of those restaurants based on those parameters. It's a similar concept that we use in traffic, where we use this ratio V by C to assess the level of service different roads and sections of roads are providing. Okay, so when it's already functioning at worst level of service, whether you in the even when the traffic is allowed inside Kavan Park, even if you ban traffic, it's not changing. I mean, in either ways, there is no reduction whether you open the Kavan Park for traffic or not. Okay, so the essence is that even if you open the Kavan Park for traffic, it's not going to make any substantial improvement in the traffic congestion levels that we are observing on the adjoining road. So there is literally no gain that we are getting by opening the Kavan Park for traffic. It continues to function at the worst level of service. And I think it's easy to understand by just thinking about the situation before the COVID came in, when the traffic was actually allowed, used to be allowed inside Kavan Park. Those who travel, during the evening peak hour or morning peak hour would remember that the roads used to be severely congested that time also. Okay, even when the traffic was allowed inside Kavan Park. Now, when we translate into the emissions, and we looked at CO2 emissions and PM 2.5, since we are saving little in terms of the total vehicle kilometers traveled by all motorized modes, and so we also are observing a slight reduction in the CO2 emissions when assessed over the whole BMR network, whether the total CO2 emissions or if we talk about the per capita CO2 emissions. About 0.32% decrease in total and 0.59% decrease in per capita CO2 emissions due to banning of traffic inside Kavan Park. Likewise, when we see PM 2.5, which is the biggest health hazard, coming out of tailpipes, you again see a slight reduction in the Kavan Park no traffic scenario, about 0.4% in total emissions and about 0.68% when we take the per capita PM emissions. So in both cases, we are actually seeing a slight decrease over when summed up over the whole BMR network. That this is nothing but the total estimated exhaust emissions by all motorized vehicles. So if we summarize, this study basically uses a macro simulation approach to understand these impacts over the whole BMR network by comparing the business as usual when traffic is allowed inside and comparing it with the Kavan Park no traffic scenario. The main conclusion, as I have explained in the earlier slides, one is there is a net reduction in the total motorized vehicle kilometers traveled under the Kavan Park no traffic scenario, about 0.44%. Likewise, we don't see any substantial reduction in any way in traffic or improvement in V by C ratio and the level of service observed on the roads adjoining the Kavan Park, even if the park is open for traffic. It remains at worst level of service F, and practically speaking, this worst level of service F, if you imagine practically, for example, during the evening peak hour, when you are approaching, say, the Kaveri Junction, along the airport road, you will typically see that you have a stop and go situation. Yeah, you just go a little ahead and then stop, wait for a few minutes, again you go ahead and stop. That kind of extreme congestion situation is what we actually practically relate to worst level of service F. So whether you open the Kavan Park for traffic or not, the roads adjoining the Kavan Park remains at the same situation. Okay, and so why do that and destroy a major lung space and environmentally and ecologically sensitive zone. Also, under the Kavan Park no traffic scenario, we are observing a net reduction of CO2 and PM 2.5 emissions as compared to when the traffic is allowed inside Kavan Park. So banning traffic through Kavan Park would help help city preserve an important lung space and an ecologically sensitive area. and would enable access to people across all walks of life to a socially vibrant and environment-friendly space, thereby improving the quality of life of individuals. And now let me take you through last set of slides on what we can recommend from this whole study and analysis. So based on the modeling results, as I said, we have seen reduction in the overall VKT and emissions when we estimate it over the whole BMR. Uh, um, Preservation of an important green and ecological space for the well-being of people and improvement in the quality of life. I think it's very clear and strongly recommended to ban motorized traffic completely inside Kavan Park permanently, because opening it is not making any impact. Yes, of course, the situation is grave in the CBD area in terms of traffic, but opening Kavan Park for traffic is not adding to any solution or any substantial impact in terms of improvement in that situation. So the actual permanent and sustainable measure to decongest the CBD is strengthen and improve the public transport network, whether you have the bus network, the priority given to buses, or the network of the metro rail connectivity and the other modes like suburban rail and other things that we can think about. That's the only way in long run that we can sustain and decongest the CBD area, by strengthening the public transport in the core area of the city, and also improve the level of service. And along with this, in parallel, you also need to come up with the measures or policies to disincentivize the use of personal modes, especially to bring them to the CBD area, mainly cars and two-wheelers and other, such modes. For example, banning traffic in Kavan Park is one such policy measure to disincentivize use of personal modes. So the net effect of this would induce a mode shift towards sustainable modes that we talk about, public transport, walking and cycling, and would on a sustained level would decongest the CBD area. To give some immediate relief to the roads adjoining the Kavan Park, we should mainly focus on local and low cost traffic management measures that can be worked out for some immediate and short term relief. Things like junction improvements, relooking at the one-way, two-way movements, improving the traffic signal timings and things like that, so that we get some immediate, relief on those roads adjoining Kavan Park. Further, of course, there are existing institutions and organizations functioning inside the Kavan Park. This has been highlighted by many people. And banning traffic through Kavan Park would result in some inconvenience to them in terms of commuting and accessibility. So there could be certain things that we can do to mitigate the inconvenience that people working in these organizations would have. One thing could be to conduct a survey in each of these existing institutions or organizations which are functioning inside Kavan Park, map their origin destination and cluster them, from where these employees and visitors are coming to these organizations, and then with this understanding, do some targeted improvements on the bus and metro services connectivity to make it easy for people to come to Kavan Park using public transport. Also, improve the last mile connectivity to Kavan Park from these nearby metro stations and bus stops. A service quality assessment of the pedestrian and cycling facilities in and around Kavan Park can be done by DOLT, along with other concerned agencies. And once we have the result of the service quality assessment, we can then, suggest and do targeted improvements in the walking and cycling facilities around the Kavan Park and connecting to the public transport terminals and the organizations that are located inside the Kavan Park to improve this last mile connectivity of public transport to Kavan Park. Things like wider and good surface quality footpaths, cycle paths, the electric micro mobility options, cycle sharing systems, e-carts or e-rickshaws inside the Kavan Park. There are certain ways in which we can improve and make the last mile seamless for those who are using public transport to come to Kavan Park. Also, to help those who are still coming by their own vehicles to these organizations, based on feasibility and without impacting the ecology of Kavan Park. And if possible, one can think about underground parking but with limited capacity. I would, recommend only 1/3 of the existing parking demand that can be established at a convenient location, so that people can park in this underground facility and then walk to their respective organization. It's important to provide only a limited parking capacity, so that we ensure that we induce a mode shift of majority of travelers who are coming to Kavan Park towards public transport, walking and cycling. Also, a blueprint and a long-term plan can be prepared to make Kavan Park a more socially vibrant space, without impacting the environment and ecology of the park. The blueprint can suggest ways to increase recreational activities and other forms of social engagements inside the park, which will also then contribute eventually to improvements in health and well-being of people in the city. So in terms of EndNote, I talked about and referred to this Climatrans report. As I said, if you want to understand the travel demand model in more detail, or how on a complete city level, what kind of bundle of strategies are best to see a sustainable future for livable Bangalore, I would recommend all of you to please refer to this report that can be downloaded from this link. This link is already being provided in the technical article that we have disseminated to everybody. Yesterday there were also news articles based on these reports, highlighting and summing up what we have also said in the report in terms of the traffic impact analysis of banning traffic inside Kavan Park. Now, while this was a technical presentation, but I would like to end my presentation on a more emotional note. I would say, so when the smoke of cigarette passes through our lungs, we know that it causes lung cancer to us. Similarly, if you allow smoke emitting vehicles to pass through the lung space of Bangalore, which is our Kavan Park, Bangalore will suffer from lung cancer. And let's ensure that it doesn't happen. Thank you. So with this, I close my presentation, and the floor is open for questions. Anybody who would like to ask questions or give inputs, please unmute yourself and ask your question. You can also use the raise your hand button, which is given on the Teams app. The floor is open. Anybody who would like to ask question or can unmute their mic, and please go ahead. Yes, Priya, please.
Yeah, hi. Ashish, from a completely, you know, from a completely public perspective, people who don't know, people like me, when you say that we actually gain by going around Cubbon Park, both in terms of emission or in terms of capacity, there is this element of disbelief. So, can you just help somebody like me understand? I can relate to it, as you rightly said, emotionally. I can relate to it from a point of view of long term impact. But from a person who's actually using the city and using the roads of the city, how would you explain to them why it is actually not really a big impact?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier also, that we have tried assessing the impact not just on the roads adjoining the Kavan Park, but on the network, at the network level. And mainly for the reason that, the commute, when you make choices for commute, you basically choose your routes that optimizes your travel time. Every time we do that, whenever, on a given normal day we are traveling. So, interestingly, when you reassign the origin destination trips onto the
Yeah.
network which doesn't contain the Kavan Park roads, okay, this reassignment uh, is making, changing of these routes that some OD pairs have because of now closing of the Kaban Park roads, and that equilibrium when it settles down. So this equilibrium doesn't happen immediately. Okay, that today you close the Kaban Park and tomorrow again you reach the equilibrium. It happens over certain months because people then start trying alternative routes, and then over time, over months, they would realize that okay, this is the route that I can now take, is the best route for me to travel between same origin destination pair. So eventually, when this equilibrium happens over few months, what we are seeing is that overall the total kilometers that all motorized modes are traveling, which is what we are estimating from the model results, are giving us a slight reduction in the kilometers traveled. Okay. Now, as I said, there could be multiple reasons that in this redistribution of trips that is happening, eventually some people are end up taking more efficient routes, which they were not taking earlier, while trying to pass through Kavan Park or likewise through other roads adjoining it. Okay, so it's an interesting result. It came as an interesting result to us also, but that's how it is. That's how it is coming out and showing the behavioral change that you would go through in terms of routes that people are choosing, and that is leading to a slight decrease in the VKT. But the roads adjoining the Kavan Park, there is, as I said, there is nothing changing. The congestion remains whether you open traffic or not open traffic. Okay, when we close the Kaban Park, we are obviously seeing a slight increase in the volume to capacity ratio on these adjoining roads, as I presented in the table also. But that slight increase is not really changing the condition. The condition is already worst. The condition is already worst on those adjoining roads, and they remain worst. Okay, but on the network level, it is eventually giving us slight savings. That's how I can explain. Hopefully.
That makes sense. Thanks, Ashish. Because as I said, from a person from who doesn't understand the space very well, the results were a little surprising to know that
Yes, yes.
some of it can actually get better. And most of us have also been speaking to perhaps people from the traffic side who have got very immediate and transactional issues around, say, what is going to happen in Nurpatanga, what is going to happen at KSCA, at Kasturba Road. So it becomes trans. So while we understand this,
Yeah,
how would you? And I don't want to take away a question that somebody else may have. I don't want to hog the conversation, but
yeah.
how would you suggest that this can be communicated, or the long-term impact understood by a traffic policeman standing on the ground and struggling with traffic, or a very irate commuter who is perhaps 2 minutes longer in waiting in Kasturba Road or Nupatanga Road to move into Kaban Park.
So, I mean, I understand this dilemma the traffic police always have. And, as a department and the way they function and, their personal look at things, it's basically a ground level understanding. A constable standing on a road would be, or a junction would be able to see around and see what's happening. That's how they see the understanding. Okay. But what you may not be able to guess or understand, especially since transportation is actually a complex system. Okay, it's a classic domain of complexity science, because there are so much of influences and causality that happens. You may do certain intervention at one point, but it always have a network effect. Okay, but for an organization like traffic police, it's not easy to understand the network effect. They may only focus on what's happening, say, on a particular road or a particular junction. That's why initially also I said this traditional V by C ratio kind of assessment, which is always this bottom up ground level thinking, is not the holistic way to look at the real picture. And that's why we in the transportation domain suggest that we have to minimize or reduce the miles traveled by all motorized vehicles. Okay, so from a traffic police point of view, who are trying to manage traffic, as you can see in this figure, whether it is BAU or the no traffic Cubbon Park scenario, the CBD area is highly congested. Okay, and you can keep doing this traffic management stuff, or even if you go tomorrow and build some flyover and other things, they would shift the point of congestion somewhere from here to there and like that, but the overall condition would remain grim. Okay, and so even changing signal timings, changing one way, two way, and those things, they may have some reduction on one road, but it will increase things on the other road. Eventually you got to bring down this load in the CBD. Okay, and that bringing down the load on the CBD can only happen, as I said, with a sustained focus on improving the public transport network connectivity and level of service that you're offering in the CBD area. Okay, I think this is something that all of us, and it's very simple to understand from the past interventions that we have done in the Bangalore city in last few decades. We have predominantly focused on road infrastructure based measures to reduce these traffic congestion levels, but we have not succeeded at all. Okay, so examples are right in front of us. Hopefully, I mean, we have to keep explaining this to the concerned agencies, and unless you understand this causality and a network impact, you will not have a real sense of whether a solution is permanent, workable or not. Hopefully, I've tried to answer the question.
No, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, Raj, please go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me, Professor?
Yes, I can hear
you. First of all, I would like to thank you and your team for having brought out this very important and practical report, which is going to be useful to the city. I have one question and one very concrete suggestion. The question is very specific. In your one of your slides, you had shown that the volume to capacity ratio in all the surrounding roads reduces except in Kasturba Road. Slide number 18, I think. So when it is increasing, I'm sorry, when it is increasing in all the roads slightly, very slightly, how is it that only in Kasturba Road it is come down very slightly? This is something which I would like to understand. And the suggestion, shall I wait for your answer and then give you the suggestion?
Yeah, so let me just answer this. Of course, sure. As I said, when redistribution happens, people try to see which roads would fit in within their origin destination route and would help them still minimize their travel time or travel distance in the revised equilibrium that we are talking about. Now here, when we have reported this V/C ratio, it is on the critical link, as it is clearly written. The road actually consists of many links. A link is nothing but the road segment between two junctions. Now, a given road like Cubbon Park Road, they consist of a series of links. Okay, so from a transportation planning perspective, we always focus on the maximum load section or the worst link within the whole route. Okay, so these V/C ratios are on the critical link on those roads. Okay, on that critical link, we are seeing a slide. But as I said, 2.19 to 2.16 is just a small delta. You won't even actually feel it on the ground whether it's really making any difference. So I would literally say that there is no change in the congestion level on the Kasturba Road or any of these roads in terms of the congestion level. You might see a little increase or decrease in the queue lengths, but in terms of the congestion level and the amount of time that you have to spend, is literally same in both the scenario. So hopefully that answers the question. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Now the suggestion that I had is we were talking about last mile connectivity and all that, public transport. There are two very good metro stations at the border of Cubbon Park, and there are buses going here and there from all around. Now my specific suggestion is, if BMTC can run a bus which goes along the periphery roads of Cubbon Park, only along the periphery roads of Cubbon Park, like Kasturba Road, near the, you have named it as Jafar Sharif Road, the Queen's Road and Vidana Vidi, Rupatranga Road and back, just going around and round. That's it. It covers a distance of, I think, about over 5 kilometers. And this service can help people manage their commute better without entering Cubbon Park. When you add the parking slot which you spoke about, it takes it to the next level. So this is one specific suggestion I had. If you think it's fine, kindly include it in your.
In fact, in this recommendation also, we had clearly said that the whole, if we can map the origin destination well of the employees and visitors of the organizations functioning inside Cubbon Park, we can then do this targeted improvement. And what you're suggesting is a loop-like service around Cubbon Park by BMTC to possibly help the circulation of people around the Cubbon Park in an easy way. So all such measures that we can see as more targeted measures to help improve this last mile connectivity to Cubbon Park from public transport, I think they would really help making this case stronger and mitigating the inconvenience cost to those who are coming to Cubbon Park as their destination.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Ashish.
Thank you. Any questions?
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I just wanted to ask, if we ignore the user equilibrium argument and we distribute the
kindly introduce
Hello.
yourself.
Yeah, I'm Lakshman.
Okay, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so if we ignore the user equilibrium argument, because that takes a few months to actually materialize. So if we distribute the traffic only around the alternative routes, then what would the V by C ratios look like?
Correct. So so behaviorally it actually doesn't happen like that. That's why we have assessed the impact over the network. Okay. It's so there is a difference between a user equilibrium and a system optimum. Okay. What you're referring to is a targeted diversion by, say, traffic police of these traffic in certain manner to these adjoining roads. Okay, by, say, for example, 20% traffic you divert on this road, 30% you divert on this road, and like that. This is essentially works well when you are trying to intervene and trying to guide people in certain way. Okay. Now, if you only focus on this local diversion in certain ways that we want it to be, of course, the roads were already congested and will remain congested, maybe a little more addition to the congestion. But when you say user equilibrium, that's actually what happens when you allow the system to settle and go in equilibrium by itself. Okay, where people start rethinking their route choices and the roads that they take for their normal commute and come to a equilibrium level within which the network functions by itself. Okay, that's actually behaviorally more grounded in terms of what we actually see as impact, and that's why we have focused on the user equilibrium kind of redistribution of trips.
Okay. So my second question would be a very quick one. So we had formed a group in order to do a survey, right, around Cubbon Park to understand how things will work once we close Cubbon Park for traffic. So I right now, since you've already done so much of work, what survey would you recommend us to do?
Actually, presently, since also because of COVID situation, we don't have the pre-COVID traffic situation. The actual data collection would not help on the ground level. We could have done that if we were in the pre-COVID level. I would have also suggested some actual data collection to cross-check also and validate. While of course these models are already validated number of times through actual counts that we do and so on. But in the present conditions, since it is impacted by COVID and we don't have the pre-COVID level traffic, actual data collection, unfortunately, at this time would not help us much to gain the clear understanding, because obviously, sometime or the other, COVID situation will vanish and you would see traffic coming back to the pre-COVID level. So the present situation is not the actual level of traffic which we would see in a normal activity, economic activity of the city. So it would be a limited use, and especially since we have already forecasted these volumes using the models for all these adjoining roads. So that's what I feel.
Right. I think we're all waiting for the COVID situation to vanish, but maybe we could, maybe do the OD for the employees there if possible,
Yes.
because that can be done today. Yeah. Right.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that can be done. Yes, of course, of course. To set these
Thank you so much.
recommendations. Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Thank,
Go on.
thank you. Any other question by any other? Naresh? Any other question? We have somebody from DULT also. I think Shamant is there. Shamant, do you have any inputs or questions? Okay. So I think if, yeah.
No, sir, I think it was nice to
Okay.
hear your presentation. I have no questions.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. So if there are no more questions or suggestions, then I thank you all. This recording will make some public link, and make it available later on. So hopefully those who couldn't join today can also refer to this whole conversation and the presentation at the later date. Thanks to all of you for joining and being a concerned citizen. Hopefully, the collective effort by many would help the government take a more scientific and data-driven decision. Thank you. Priya, you wanted to say something? Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say thank you very much for you and your team to have taken. I know Hemantani is there, and thank you very much for taking this time and effort to put this simulation in place. It's something that I was very concerned about because I knew it could go either which way, but some of the results have been deeply interesting, insightful, and surprising. And it certainly has given us a chance to be able to understand this better and to look at things in a more holistic manner rather than just what happens in and around. So I just want to thank you for sharing your insights and being so generous with your with your time and effort on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
Professor.
before I conclude the session, I just want to give due credit and acknowledgement to my co-authors, Hemantini and Harsha, my research scholars, who have really burned day and night for last 10, 15 days to create the simulation model, run it, and run both the scenarios and compile all the results. It's really a lot of effort. So thanks to Harsha and Hemantini. And I just want to clarify that this study was done as a pure academic exercise. This study was not funded by any organization or any individual. We really wanted to give an independent, unbiased, assessment based on a scientific data and approach, and that's what we have tried doing that. We have made it public so that everybody can refer to it and understand it and make use of it. If there are other organizations, I heard that traffic police has also done some study, but I have not been able to get hold of that study. If it would be really nice for such organizations to also release and open their reports for others to refer, so that we can also understand, how if there are other studies, how they have been done and what conclusions have come out of that. So with that, again, thanks to all of you for taking time on a Saturday, but of course an important issue for Bangalore, and hope this takes us logically, in taking more informed decision for the betterment of the city. Thanks to all of you. Thank you. Thank you.